decarbonise transport in Auckland, and I'm here to talk about what happens if you don't do these things. And the key point that I want to make is this is not just a nice to have. This is not just one of many options available to you. This is what you are legally obliged to do. So on the slide, I've set out some of the various sources of your legal obligations. Obviously, there's a Local Government Act, which you'll all be familiar with, which explicitly requires council to promote environmental well-being, both for present generations and future generations. That is your legal obligation. Secondly, there's the Climate Change Response Act. Now, explicitly, the Act provides that all public decision makers are able to take the Act's 2050 zero carbon goal into account in their decisions. So that's permissive. What we say, Lawyers for Climate Action, is that when you are doing something which is so clearly critical to the ability to achieve that goal, so for example, when you're involved in preparing the RLTP, that is clearly a critical piece of New Zealand's ability to meet its emissions goals. That is so clearly a material consideration for council that if you fail to take it into account, your decision will be unlawful. And Lawyers for Climate Action is very prepared to test that in court. Finally, or not finally, next is the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. Now you're probably saying, what on earth does the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act have to do with transport? Well, the council is bound, like all public decision makers, by that act, which enshrines, of course, the right to life. We already have cases overseas, for example in the Netherlands, where inadequate strategies to reduce emissions have been held to contravene the right to life because of the existential crisis we are facing. In terms of the Council's own pronouncements, you've declared a climate emergency, you've adopted a climate action plan, Te Taruki a Tāwhiri, which sets out very ambitious goals and the goals that you need to and should be achieving. Now, those pronouncements by the Council create legitimate expectations that you are going to follow them and act in accordance with them. And you may or may not have heard about the decision from the High Court at the end of last year in Hauraki Coromandel Climate Action and Thames Coromandel, where the judge said that in certain circumstances a climate emergency declaration may have legally enforceable consequences. So you can't simply adopt good goals, and you've done a great job of doing that. You have to follow through, and there will be legal consequences if you don't. And finally, I just want to urge you, the majority of Aucklanders want bold and transformative action on the climate. They want bold and transformative action on transport. I know there is a vocal minority opposing these measures, but the majority are behind you and support you. Lawyers for Climate Action and all the members of the All Aboard Coalition want to support Council on this journey, but we will also hold you to account if needed.